Did you watch any Raw this week?
I watched a bit of Raw. Now, remember, this is the 3-hour program. So I'm thinking, okay, well, certainly this is going to be a blockbuster, right? They're just going to throw the stars at us. They're just going to be coming a mile a minute, Brian. Oh, boy. The first segment, and you saw some of this, right? You saw the way.
I saw the opening segment, I believe, yeah.
Okay. The official weigh-in for Bobby Lashley and Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble. And Lashley and MVP come out, and then they're about to introduce Brock and Paul, and Paul interrupts, and he waddles on out. And I swear to God, it looked like somebody had ribbed him and taken the last 6 inches of his pant legs off. Did you see his pant legs were... Maybe it was just he's gained some weight. I used to have that problem when I was portly, that my pant legs wouldn't go all the way down as far as they were supposed to. But anyway, he interrupts and he does Brock's introduction. Is Paul Heyman going to have an aneurysm one of these days doing the introduction?
He does go from 0 to 10 pretty quickly.
I'm wondering how old is he going to be before that's dangerous? What is the youngest that you're allowed to die of old age?
That's a good question.
Well, and apparently you don't have a good answer.
I don't have a good answer for it.
We'll move on then. Anyway, so they had a scale in the ring from a 1950s drugstore. Even one of the old Toledo scales, but did you see that?
I did, yeah.
Now, part of the thing is that they're smarter than they were in AEW when they did the weigh-in. They didn't have one of the doctor's office scales where you slide the deal across, because as they found out, when you're bouncing in the ring, anybody's moving, you can't work those. But this thing looked, let's say, vintage. So Lashley strips down to his sweatpants, and he's 273. And then MVP did a nice little promo for Lashley. And it's good that MVP and Heyman are there to offset each other. If they let them play a little bit at the Rumble, I always had great success fucking bouncing off Paulie in the other corner because, he gets people stirred up. And I would think in this... They have, at first, it seemed like that Brock and Paul were going to be the baby faces. But I got to admit, as it goes on, I mean, Paul's not doing anything that Paul wouldn't do if he's Paul Heyman, whether babyface or heel or whatever. But I thought Brock and the smiling Brock or whatever would be the babyface in this thing. But does Brock Lesnar start, after you've seen him a week or two, coming off as the most obnoxious babyface you've ever seen?
Oh, you didn't like Brokeback Brock here? Coming out with his cowboy hat and his whole new look, and he's smiling and he's telling jokes.
I'm not sure about it. So MVP cut a good promo, and then Brock, as you say, he's dressed in a heavy coat and jeans and big belt buckle and boots and a cowboy hat. And so they say, don't you want to take some of your clothes off for the weigh-in? So he takes off the cowboy hat and hands it to Paul. And he weighs in at 286. Well, he had 13 pounds of fucking clothes on, whatever. But I love Bobby Lashley as a talent and as a person. But when Bobby verbally bowed up at Brock, he is neither as mean and aggressive in his voice and his facial demeanor as you would be if you were a murderous killer, nor does he have the asshole-ish, over-the-top personality of Brock Lesnar with the big smile and laughing and shit, because even if it's bad comedy, Brock is an over-the-top asshole. And he doesn't need to talk very long. So Bobby Lashley is such a nice guy. I mean, he's a beast of an athlete. Everything they've said about him is true. He, not only the MMA and Bellator and the stuff he's done in wrestling in various companies, but he was the Army wrestling champion, and he was a serviceman. He defended the country. He's a family man. had children. I mean, he's just a nice guy and a great athlete, but he's not a murderous beast with blood, dripping from his fangs that you would be scared of when he's talking to you. Which is, and with Brock, he tried to build up a funny line that would end in him calling Lashley Bobby Who. And Paul was trying to be the wall there for him to bounce it off of, but either he said it wrong or it just fell flatter than a plate full of piss because there was no reaction and it didn't really, you know what I mean? And I don't know potentially what the right way was that he botched the setup. But you could almost see Paul's face like, oh my God, this is gone. You've said it wrong or something. I don't know. What'd you think?
I don't know about the whole segment. I like the idea of doing some kind of confrontation, obviously before the Royal Rumble, which I realized was this weekend after I saw this segment. So we got to watch that.
Yeah, I forgot. I got to take the trash out Sunday too. God damn it.
But there's no commentator or announcer or anyone there with a microphone. It's just everyone's in the ring kind of yelling at each other. Well, I shouldn't say that. Corey Graves was there with Adam Pearce.
Well, yeah, but they're over in the corner and then they don't interact with that's the thing when the talent is allowed to take over the show and do the sports entertainment emoting where everybody has a microphone and there's no announcer actually running the interview, it becomes the South Park wrestling skit where they're doing high drama. The point is, after that, Brock called him Bobby Who, and then they fucking left. And nothing else happened. And I don't think it did anything to help the issue. I've liked everything that they've done with these guys physically and the build of them, except when Brock and or Lashley have to speak. Because as I said, Bobby doesn't have, I mean, he'd kill you if he wanted to. He's not Bobby wouldn't maliciously hurt anyone, but as an athlete, he could kill you in a number of ways, but he don't sound like Mad Dog Vachon, right? and Brock, there's almost no way that him with the voice and the personality that he has can come off being a verbal wordsmith. He needs to speak in little bursts and be the beast. So this segment I'm almost having to pull for the heel just because Brock is now kind of annoying because he's a natural fucking heel.
What about the fact that, we're kind of now completely away from anything with Heyman and Reigns? They're going to keep them away from each other, I guess, for a little while, but do you think there should always be some kind of acknowledgement of that until we get to WrestleMania?
They have to come back. Yes, and I mean, there's more to be told with Heyman and Reigns, but right now, if they started to, it's more confusing. They just cross-pollinated their two world championship matches on the same pay-per-view last week with Bobby having to work with Seth when Seth's going to work with Reigns and blah, blah, blah. So I don't think we need more cross-pollination with reminding everybody now that Heyman and Reigns are on the outs because that will come back around. But it's just when you have two champions, and the way that also because of COVID they had to put something on Brock. It's just, as we mentioned, they ended up better off for the eventual showdown between Brock and Reigns, but right now they got to get there and they got to keep these other fucking challengers occupied.